Alright, welcome back to the second passage of SAT practice test number 2. Today we'll take a quick glance at the passage before we dive into the questions. As you may have noticed, this is a pretty long video for a group of questions that should take no longer than 13 to 15 minutes. But we will be deliberately analyzing every single answer choices so that you can better understand what makes the right answers absolutely correct and the wrong ones clearly incorrect. On the actual exam, you would not need nearly as much consideration. As you watch the video, I encourage you to think of the minimum work and thinking and evidence to help you find the correct answer, because on the actual exam, you wouldn't want to be wasting time looking for extra evidence, right? So now let's take a quick glance at the passage itself. So the passage is adapted from, another person. Can economics be ethical? 2013. Okay, so this is a very relevant essay, passage, whatever you want to call it. That means we will probably be able to understand all the words here. Recent debates about economy. Okay, great. Let's underline that. Oh, what happened there? Economy. So rediscover the question right. So what is right? Exactly, what is right, SAT? Profits or efficiency? Well, more than just profits and efficiency. Okay, so some argue, so this is one person's opinion, so something about free market and how ethical is the free market. Okay, before we label anything as immoral, let's keep going. So the author wants us to be clear. Whoa, what happened there? To be clear on what we are talking about. So here I think we're gonna take a look at what the author wants us to be clear on. Different views. Okay, so I assume that the rest of the paragraphs will be examples of what the author thinks we have to be clear on, and this will probably be the first view. We'll see how consider Adam Smith. Okay, this is definitely going to be our first view. Let's put a big one right there. So sympathy for others was the basis for ethics, but acting on empathy, which is his sympathy, could be counterproductive. Okay, so being kind to people could be bad. Great, how encouraging. He observed people becoming better off by putting their own empathy aside. So self-interested way gives you better results, apparently. Justify selfish behavior by the outcome. Okay. And then railroad, buy one get one free. Oh, I love buy one get one free. Okay, great. So these are just examples here about how being self-interested can make other people better off. Great. Let's look at this paragraph. So Aristotle said ethics having the right character. Okay, right character, that's what paragraph 2 is about. It is a view put into practice whenever business leaders are chosen for their good character. It's a hard philosophy to teach. I agree, Aristotle. Just how much loyalty? Yeah, show too little and you're greedy. Show too much, you're wasting money. Well, that's not really helpful. It just said that it's not clear what the balance between being greedy and nice is, and to be a good business person, you have to find that very golden balance between the two extremes, and that's just the second one. So that's about character. Let's look at yet another approach. So this is going to be our third view, and this one is rooting in character. Let me move that. There we go. Character or the consequences. So this one wants us to focus on action. It's going to talk about the right actions and the wrong actions, and it's a list of do's and don'ts. Defining ethics. Okay, so this is example here again. So in this case, doing something ethical is doing something from the do list, and even if it's better, even if doing something from the don't list will make other people better, only doing stuff from the do list is correct, is ethical. Okay, let's keep going. Many moral dilemmas arise when these three versions pull in different directions, but clashes are not inevitable. That's honestly some pretty bad phrasing. So it's saying that clashes can be avoided. Take trade coffee that is. So this is an example of a common ground. The fair trade coffee is a common ground. Just put that there, common ground. Ran out of room. Common ground. And oh, okay, great. So common ground right there. Without agreement on what still possible. So this is an example of something good. Whenever you feel queasy about perfect, competitive, often rooted in phony, precise people. So this is how we view people. The model of man is classic economic, based on so rational, selfish being came up with this dude. This is a fiction, and in general, people fair losses more than gains. Okay, that's pretty reasonable, easy to understand. These human quirks we can never purely rational. Okay, so going back to behaving like a herd, fearing losses. So new wave behavioral economists, neuroscientists, psychology. So the combination of this is trying to understand our behavior, I guess, decision in the marketplace. So economic decisions and like how we spend our money, help us understand disgust, moral law. So you want to understand human behavior in the market better, and also define ethics and ethical eventually. Okay, so this is more about the future of how we're gonna perceive ethics in the marketplace. So overall, we have the introduction where whoa, that's really awkward. The introduction where he talks about it's basically just an introduction, nothing really special here, and then talks about the importance of being clear on different views of ethics. And then the following paragraphs 1, 2, and 3 give you 3 different reasons, 3 different approaches, 3 different definitions of ethical decision. And then this paragraph here talks about a common ground, which happens to be fair trade coffee. And here just talks about maybe the future a little bit. Here's how we perceived people in the past, and here's how we're gonna evolve that understanding in the future using psychology and behavior economists and neuroscientists. Okay, let's move on to the graph. Well, we're not gonna take a look at the graph until much later, as if we take a look at it now, we're gonna forget it. And that's basically a huge waste of time. We never want to waste time on the SAT. They punish people who waste time. Okay, so let's look at the questions. Number 11, the main purpose of the passage is to... let's get rid of that word main. Come on, man. There's only one correct answer. If you're being controversial, the SAT is going to be sued, and they don't want to do that. So, cutting to profits. Is to understand the ethical dilemma. Well, when we're talking about purpose on the SAT, it's very similar to the main idea and the thesis, and it's basically what the author wants, right? This kind of stuff is going to be located, so pretend this is the page and there's the passage. It's going to be located in the introduction and the conclusion. Well, why? Because the main idea is usually in the introduction. That's where your English teacher told you, and in a story, sometimes I don't know, Aesop's fable, the moral is at the end, and that's what the purpose is So that's the moral at the end or the main idea at the start. And those are the two places where the purpose is going to be located. And in the middle is going to be all your examples, right? It's kind of like a persuasive essay, an argumentative essay. You got your introduction and your conclusion where you state some of your opinion, and then you got the middle where you provide evidence to back up your claim, right? So we're going to be looking at stuff in the introduction and the conclusion mostly, but I'm sure there'll be some options that, reference the middle part and they will end up being correct. Okay, let's look at A. Considering an ethical dilemma posed by cost-benefit analysis. So we've got cost-benefit analysis and ethical dilemma. Certainly the passage talked about ethics, so I think we'll just pass on that right now. We'll look at cost-benefit analysis first. That seems awfully specific. And if I remember correctly, that was the first way. That was the Adam Smith way, right? Can we find cost? Yeah, there we go. So cost-benefit analysis was right here. That's kind of like justifying, selfish behavior just because, you make more money and stuff like that. The problem with this choice, while that cost-benefit analysis is mentioned in the passage, is that it's very local. We only see it in the third paragraph, I want to say. Yeah, third paragraph. We only see it in the third paragraph. And the purpose of the passage has to be, the overall purpose of the passage, right? It can't just be one thing. And plus, we see 1, 2, and also 3 different views of looking at ethics. And therefore, it can't just be an ethical dilemma, right? It's got to be multiple ethical dilemmas, and that makes a very imperfect answer, as it's just way too narrow, and we can't pick it. It doesn't include stuff in the introduction or the conclusion either. So, B. Describe a psychological study of ethical economic behavior. All right. So here is a mentioning of psychological study. Well, sure, there was psychology in the last paragraph here, right? And that's the conclusion, and it's kind of what we said. But the problem here is we are missing that crucial study. A study is like a research, and the passage never cited any psychological study, any psychological research. There are, ideas 1, 2, and 3 about how people perceive ethics in the marketplace, but that's not really a study. That's more of just someone's opinion. There's no real numbers to back up data. There's no citing a university or a researcher, and therefore, because of the absence of the study, we have to cross B off. And let's take a look at C. Argue that the free market prohibits ethical economics. So where was free market mentioned? It was, I think free market was mentioned here. It's some people, some argue that the free markets allow for personal choice. So right there, this is something that's mostly unrelated to the overall passage. It is, so this is just someone else's opinion. The author never really took a side in this. He never said, oh, I believe that free market is ethical, or I believe free market is unethical. And thus, we can't say the author is trying to argue this specific opinion. And also, the only mentioning of, free market and ethic in really the same sentence is right here. And this sentence is the opposite of what the SAT is trying to make us pick. Thus, we know that C has to be a pretty awful answer choice, because the author never really took a side, and the only example of free market and ethical economics contradicts the statement. So let's look at D. D better be the correct answer, because that's the only one we're left with. Examine ways of evaluating ethics of economics. So that's looking at ways of evaluating ethics. Well, let's look at the first paragraph. We have this line that we underlined before, and that was what I said before to be the main idea, kind of. The author wants us to be clear on what we're talking about. Is that similar to what D is trying to say? examine ways of evaluating ethics. Well, that's actually a pretty good reinstatement, right? So the author wants us to be clear, and that's same thing as examining ways. What does the author want us to examine? What we're talking about, which happens to be, ethics in the economy, right? And in the many examples that follow, it also talks about ethics and economy and how ethics apply when we're making, ethical behaviors. Ethics apply when we're making economic decisions, right? And that makes D a pretty wonderful answer because it's resting in the introduction. It has multiple mentioning throughout the passage, as the whole passage is talking about ethics and economy, and there are multiple ways. Right here was the S. So that makes D a really good reinstatement of the purpose of the passage. Let's look at 12. In the passage, the author anticipates which of the following objections to criticizing the ethics of the free market. Okay, so this is, well, we can't really dive into the author's head. So, and on the SAT, we have to pick absolutely correct answer. So we can't really guess what the author is trying to say. That means whatever the author is anticipating, it has to be very, very clear in the passage. Let's look at A. Smith's association of free markets with ethical behavior still applies today. Well, free market, as we said before, was in this paragraph, the second paragraph right here, free market, and Adam Smith is in the paragraph that came after. There were no mentioning or really no connection between Adam Smith's model and the free market, and that makes A an incorrect answer because never really stated in the passage very clearly. A. And okay, let's go to B. Free markets are the best way to generate high profits. Well, high profits, was this mentioned in the paragraph, in any paragraph? No, not really. The author never tells us that which way will give us the most profit. And sometimes it states that sometimes the cost benefit model and stuff like that. But these are not what the author has said to be absolutely the best way to make high profits. And the one sentence we had about free market in the second paragraph also doesn't talk about profits at all, and thus we have to cross B off. Sorry, B. Okay, next. Free market are ethical because they're made possible by devalued currency. Alright, devalued currency, I remember seeing that. It was one of the thing in the third way. Okay, free market again. Wow, they really like free market on this question. So here in this paragraph, again, no mentioning of the free market whatsoever. It just talks about how the free market relates to the third view of looking at ethics and economics, and thus there's no connection between this. And because there's no connection between this, there's no indication that this is what the author is trying to anticipate at all. All right, let's look at D. Looks like we got 2 D's in a row, whatever. So free markets are ethical because they enable individuals to make choices. So going back to free market, allow for personal choice. Oh, personal choice, that's perfect, man. Personal choice and individual choice. Individual to make choices. This is a very, very perfect reinstatement. It's very clear that the author is anticipating what some would argue about the free market. And that is a very clear anticipation, right? We don't really have to dig into what the author's head is. We don't have to, guess what the author is saying. It's very clear that the author is anticipating what some people believe about the free market. So that makes D a very, very great answer. And okay, 13. Okay, so this was the line that we were just at, 4 to 5. 4 to 5. Yes, 4 to 5. That makes A the correct answer here without a doubt. But we can look at 7 and 10 as well to be safe. B, okay, 7 to 10, B, about 7 to 10. But before we label any market, outcome as immoral or trying to put. Okay, we need to be clear on what we're talking about. Well, does that choice talk about the free market? It says any market outcome. It is not really specific to the free market, and thus we just have to eliminate it as well. And also, it has really no corresponding. It really has no corresponding answer in number 12, and thus B is incorrect. Let's look at C, line 21 to 22. 21 to 22. Selfish behavior. Okay, so this is something about Adam Smith, and as we discussed before, Adam Smith, free market, separate topic, can't be right. It's trying to appeal to choice A, I think. That's what the SAT is trying to do. But A is wrong, and C has to be wrong as well. Okay, choice D, 52 to 54. 52 to 54. 52 to 54. Okay, yeah, again, something we discussed before. Devaluation and free market are not really discussed together. They're separate topics in the passage. So the SAT is again trying to confuse you, and thus D is incorrect. On the SAT, we gotta be really careful not to just assume when two things appear in the passage they're related. Most likely they're not related. Okay, let's look at 14. As using line 6, embraced most nearly mean. So in the most nearly mean question, I like to replace the word in the actual sentence. So embrace is right here. Let me see if I can highlight that. It would be much easier to spot. Others. And there we go. Okay. Others have accepted the ethical and embraced corporate responsibility. Okay, let's go down. Take a look at our first choice. Lovingly held. Wow. So apparently SAT wants us to say others have accepted the ethical critique and lovingly held corporate social responsibility. Now, the idea of love and romance is very absent from the second paragraph, and held is usually used to describe, interacting physically with something. And here, corporate social responsibility is not really a physical thing. It's really more of a concept, and thus, because of the absence of love and physicality, A is going to be incorrect. Not an appropriate use. B, readily adopted. So others have accepted the ethical and readily adopted corporate social responsibility. Well, I didn't say this before, but when we see and here, the SAT likes to give you something to refer back to. So the verb here, accepted, should have a similar meaning to the word after the and, embraced. And here, accepted and adopted are synonyms, right? If you accept something, you adopt that idea. And here, you can also adopt a responsibility. That's like a concept. You're adopting, you're accepting, you're incorporating it into your actions. And thus B has to be the correct answer, as it rewords accept and makes sense in the context. You could adopt responsibilities. You could accept responsibilities. C. Oh wait, let me erase that. Is the correct answer. Why did I cross it out? Whoa. Maybe it's not so correct. Just kidding. Okay, C. Eagerly hugged. Well, as was before, you can't hug corporate responsibility. That's a concept. Gotta be physical to hug it, right? Same problem was held earlier. And D, reluctantly used. Well, some people will actually really like this option because you would think that embracing social responsibility would cut into your profits, and therefore, company owners would only reluctantly do it, because they care only about money apparently. But that's not something that the passage has talked about. It talks about ethics, and even at some point it talks about self-interested stuff, but it never really connected social responsibility to people not wanting to do it because of profits, and thus we know that it must be wrong. The idea of reluctantly used and not willingly using is just simply absent from the text. People accepted it before, so reluctant doesn't work. 15. The main purpose of the fifth passage, the fifth paragraph, is to develop and counter argument to claim that. Okay, so what's 45 to 56? What is that? 45 to 46. Oh, so that was just argument number 3. It talks about yet another approach. So not character, not action, not character or the consequences, but the actions themselves. Okay, that's what defines. Actions define, not anything else. Okay, develop a counter-argument that greed is good. Okay, greed. Greed was discussed right here. There was some mentioning of self-interest, greed over here. There are no mentioning of greed anywhere in this paragraph, and thus it is incorrect. It's slow scrolling. Okay. So greed was not present in the paragraph. B, provide support for the idea that ethics is about character. Oh my god, we just talked about this. Not character, man. Instead of rooting ethics in character, we have to consider the actions themselves. This is kind of like a direct contradiction to the paragraph. The first sentence of the paragraph can't be right. Can't be right. Let me just underline character. C, describe a third approach. Oh, I like that. Third approach. That's what we said before. To define ethical economics. Yeah? That's what it is. It's pretty clear. Third approach, we numbered it as well. And the whole paragraph is about ethical economics. So C is a great answer. D, illustrate that one's actions are a result of one's character. Well, the character part is, again, over here in paragraph 2 was Aristotle, not over here. This is mainly about the actions themselves and not about the character or the consequences of the action. And of course, we need to cut D out. Let's move on to 16. As used in line 58, clashes most nearly means, clashes, I think that was in that terrible sentence. Yeah, clashes right here. You know what, let's just highlight it, because I highlighted the other one as well. Okay. Man, why do I always miss the first part? Oh well. So, let's look at what our options are. So, conflicts. Many moral dilemmas arise when these three versions pull in different directions, but conflicts are not inevitable. So, different directions is similar to having conflict, right? If you agree on different things, then you have a conflict at your hands. So conflict actually makes a lot of sense here because it directly relates to a phrase in the nearby sentence, right? Very, very good option. I think, let's keep going though, are not inevitable. So it's saying that conflicts can be avoided. And here's an example: fair trade coffee, where conflicts are avoided. Okay, so you're uniting all three of these elements, and there are no conflicts. That's what fair trade coffee is. It makes sense in this context. So I'm gonna keep A open, Let's look at B. Mismatches, but pull in different direction, but mismatches are not inevitable. Mismatches. I don't think you're really matching any moral dilemmas, right? That one just does not fit. It's just kind of unrelated. It's like kind of off topic, right? Mismatches, not inevitable, doesn't relate to here pulling in different directions, right? Mismatches, you're actually putting things together, and that's not even what this is. This is going in different directions, so kind of like a direct contradiction to some degrees. Yeah, I don't like the options at the option at all. B, terrible. C, collisions. Okay, collisions, kind of like crash. Crash. Oh well. So these three pull in different directions, but collisions are avoidable. Well, collision, you might think it could fit here, but actually it does not. Collision refers again specifically to physical collisions, like car crashes. Here, these are more of a conceptual thing. And collision just doesn't fit in this context. That's not how you use collision. And honestly, I think the SAT is just trying to confuse it with clash and crash, but that's not gonna work here, right? Because we are really careful students. Let's cross that out. D, brawls. Okay, I don't really even need to go back. Brawl is like fighting. It's physical. It's two people hitting each other. Are there people here? Are there people who are fighting here? Nope. Nope. Just nope. Okay, let's cross it out. 16. A. Which choice best supports the author's claim that there is common ground shared by the different approaches to ethics described in this passage? So common ground. Okay, we talked about common ground a lot actually. The fair trade coffee. So that's gonna be what I think the best support is. So we're gonna look for that first. So somewhere over here. So I want to say like 59 to 65, something like that. 59 to 64. That's good enough. This can be our correct answer. Okay. Let's just look at some of the other options as well. Let's not be lazy. Lines 11 to 12. 11 to 12. Different views on ethics can apply. Okay, so this is just a simple description, just a statement that there are different views. It doesn't talk about the common ground, the common view, the Venn diagram middle part for different views, and thus it's really off topic actually, and that makes A incorrect. Let's look at B, 47 to 50. 47 to 50. Okay, from this, some perspective. Well, the problem with this, first of all, is that it's centered in our third idea. And what the question is asking for is a combination of 1, 2, and 3. And just being in the third paragraph already makes it incorrect. So let's just cross it out. That's too slow, man. There we go. A bit faster. Okay, D. 75 to 77. We to facts. 75. Okay, we behave like herd. Okay, so this is something about human behavior, not about common ground or different approaches to ethics. This is just how people work. It's not really economic, right? Cross it out, D. So C, as we predicted, is the correct answer. 18. The main idea of the final passage is that human quirk. Okay, let's cross it out. Main idea. There's really only one correct answer here. Okay, final paragraph. We're probably gonna go revisit that. Human quirks make it difficult to predict people's ethical decisions accurately. Okay, let's see. Well, human quirk was mentioned here, right here, human quirks. But go back. Oh, what happened there? But ethical decisions. Is ethical decisions mentioned here? Well, sure, it talks about decisions, I believe, right? Rational decisions. But rational decisions isn't the same as ethical decisions. The SAT is trying to confuse us to some degree. It's trying to equate rational decisions, financial decisions, anticipate our economic decisions to ethical decisions. And I think that's not a leap that we can make here. So let's just cross it out for now. And on a real test, if you're unsure about an option, just cross it out. Because if you cross out the right answer, in the end, you will end up with 4 wrong answers, right? 4 cross out answers, right? And at that point, you will know that you made a mistake, and you could just quickly go back and fix it. Or if you can't, just keep moving on. The worst part is, settling on an answer way too early. So let's just cross A out for now. Okay, B. People usually react with disgust when faced with economic injustice. Economic injustice and disgust. Pretty sure that was mentioned here somewhere. Okay, disgust at economic injustice. Wow, a very great reinstatement. It's like legit the same thing. Except when you realize he said, well, the SAT said, universally react. The passage never said that all people react this way, just that people in general. Usually when we see these, what I like to call extreme words, absolute words, the question is almost always, the answer choice is almost always incorrect, right? There's usually going to be some exception, and no writer is ever going to take that huge risk of just assuming everything is the way most things are, right? So let's cross out B. So this one's really, really close, and you have to be really careful about these specific adverbs, right? This one just completely messes up the meaning of the sentence. C. Understand human psychology may help to define ethics in economics. Okay, human psychology. That was mentioned. Understanding ethics. That was also mentioned, I believe. Understanding what is, this is not really ethics, it's like human behavior. Define, okay. Oh, right here. Relatively new science of human behavior. So that refers back to this psychology, human behavior, may also help us define ethics. That's a very, very clear reading statement. I think this is very perfect evidence for us to choose C on, but we're just going to leave it open for now. D. Economists themselves will be responsible for reforming the free market. Well, while the author did say something about understanding the free market and understanding the ethical economics, he never said reforming the market, right? So again, here's something that we have to be very specific about. SAT said reforming. The very important action word, reforming. Is reforming mentioned anywhere in the last paragraph? No, and thus D cannot be the right answer. So C is our correct answer. Okay, 19. All right, so these 19, 20, 21, they're all going to be graph questions, I think. So data in the graph about per pound coffee profits most strongly support which of the following statements? So A, fair trade coffee consistently earned greater profits than regular coffee earned. Let's look at that graph. Is fair trade coffee that much better off? Okay, so this is how much you made per pound. Exactly what I asked for. This is a year. Well, wow, this huge difference right here. Consistently every single year, yeah. On the graph at least. This earned a lot more money. Yeah, I think I think A is definitely the correct answer here. But following my advice earlier, let's just do a circle on the side. B. The profits earned from regular coffee did not fluctuate. Is that true? Is it always constant? Regular coffee is a solid line here. Oh, it did fluctuate. Fluctuate is like moving up and down. And here it is up, goes down, goes up, goes down, goes up, and slightly up, I suppose. So yeah, that is direct contradiction. C. Fair trade coffee profits increased between 2004 and 2006. So profits increased 2004, 2006, 2004, 2006. Profits. Wait, hold up. Profits. Oh, fair trade coffee, not regular coffee. I was like, it did increase. No, it's just a straight line. It's so consistent. Oh my god, okay, so fair trade coffee did not increase. It was very, very consistent. C, it's incorrect. Fair trade and regular coffee are, well, we know that's not true. Regular coffee was always underneath it. So A is correct. Okay, number 20. Data in the graph indicate the greatest difference between per pound profits from fair trade coffee and those from regular coffee occurred during which period? Okay, so the greatest difference. Let's see, 2002, 2002. Okay, so this profit was like the, okay. Difference in profits, right? Yeah, greatest difference in profits. So to find the difference in profits, that's going to be the difference, the gap between these two graphs. So this is going to be the difference in profits on in 2008. What the greatest difference we know already, just easily looking at it, is right here, right? So in this period from, somewhere right here to somewhere right here. Let's see if that's an option first. Sometimes the SAT just won't give you the easy choice. So 2004 to 2000. Oh, it's right here. 2002, 2004. Right? 2002 to 2004. Well, we don't need to look at the other choices. It's pretty obvious that B is the correct answer. So 21. Very last question. Data in the graph provide most direct support for which idea in the passage? So this one has to be something that relates to data in the graph and something about idea in the passage, right? So this is a double thing. We have to make sure it appears in both, right? Okay, A, acting on empathy can be counterproductive. Well, can you identify empathy from this graph? I don't think so, man. If you could come up with a brilliant analysis of empathy from that graph, then I think you should publish it. That's going to be some great research opportunity. So A is incorrect. Usually, such as these like motives and emotions are not going to be data in a graph, unless specifically they ask for a survey for like emotions and stuff like that. Okay, B. Ethical economics is defined by character. Well, again, we don't know if this is about character here, right? And also, the whole passage never mentioned which is the correct interpretation of ethics. It talks about many interpretations, and it kind of wants us to decide for ourselves. And it's telling us that these models will change in the future as new sciences, new behavior analysis evolve, right? And thus, it's not just going to be defined by character. That's not an idea in the passage, Okay, C. Ethical economics is still possible. Okay, so we know that ethical economics. Oh, how am I going to move this back? All right, there we go. Ethical economics. Okay, fair trade coffee. Well, fair trade coffee, we remember, is the common ground here, right? Fair trade coffee. That's when ethical versions collide. So over here, fair trade coffee is portrayed as something that's universally good no matter how you look at it. It has good consequences. It is virtuous. It is acting the right way in a flawed market. So it says ethical economics is still possible. And here, can we see that ethical economics is possible? Yeah. Yeah, you'll earn a lot more profit using this fair trade coffee, which the author said was a common ground and the example of ethical economics. So these are direct connections, and thus it has to be the correct answer. Let's, of course, just put a circle and leave it open for now, just in case. D, we fear losses, people fear losses more than they hope for gains. Well, this is an answer choice that we remember from the passage. Somewhere over here, right? We behave like herds. But again, such an idea is not portrayed in the passage, in the data, right? The data is about coffee, not about losses. It's about coffee. Just coffee. So this is a very unrelated thing to the data as before, and rarely would you ever get data about something, about someone's emotion on the SAT. But of course, it has happened. I've seen it happen, and in the future we will analyze some passage that talks about it. But for now, C is our correct answer. All right, so that wraps up our discussion of passage number 2 of SAT practice test number 2. If you have any questions or just want to discuss a question with me, please feel free to leave your question in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer it to the best of my abilities. And if you have any suggestions about what method I should consider as when I'm analyzing these answer choices, please leave it down. And you have a better explanation, well, leave it down in the comments section below as well, because I would love to see how you think about these questions. Thank you for watching, and I hope you guys reach that sweet 1600. Thank you.